Okay, welcome in to the live post-game chat. While you're here, please like the video and please subscribe down below. If you're just here to, I guess troll tonight would be the case, go to MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Check out his other channels. He has plenty of other channels from Iowa, Ohio State. There's plenty more under his channel logo. If you go over there, hit channel, scroll down, you can find whatever team you want, basically. And go follow your favorite team, go like your favorite team's videos, and keep up the support. Now, obviously, go to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, just for him himself. I know he has got a live call-in show every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time, and he does a fantastic job. Now, it's the 40 Acres post-game show, so we're going to be talking Texas. And, wow, that was a brutal game. I haven't been flabbergasted much when I watched Texas football, at least under Tom Herman. I was a lot under Charlie Strong, but that was pathetic. We did nothing right. Nothing. It was pathetic performance from across board, from everywhere. Coaching, right off the bat, was just bad. First off, I understand you want to get Hudson Card, in the flow of the game or ease him into the flow of the game, but that's not how you do it. You don't run the ball 5 out of the first 6 plays. I know they tried to throw in a couple of them and he had to scramble, but that's not how you do that. Why didn't we continue what we did last week versus Louisiana? Why would we not get our athletes out in space? Why did we not throw screens? It made no sense to me. None of it. It was terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. I'm amazed. I really am. I thought Steve Sarkisian would have a better game plan. Now, this is acceptable for one game a year. You're allowed to have one of these a year. One. If you're a genius as a head coach was an offense coordinator, now a head coach, you get one. This is his one. He gets no more of these. None. I don't want to see this again this year. You get one a year. Everyone has one. If you look across college football, a defensive coordinator that's great will have one game where someone just gets him. An offense coordinator that's great will have one game that gets him. This is his game. This cannot happen again. You can't be out-schemed, out-coached, outmatched. Especially the first half, fine, forgivable. We're down 16-0. Come back and take advantage of only being down 16-0. That could have been way worse. We could have been down 24, 27-0 in the first half. We played terrible in the first half, even worse coming out in the third quarter. That's what really shocked me. Our worst quarter was the third quarter. After the rest and after the halftime and the adjustment should have taken place, that should be your best quarter if you're an offensive genius. That I don't understand it. I don't understand it. It makes no sense to me. But that's just the beginning. Obviously coaching and then offensive line. Everything went wrong, even putting in Casey so late. 100%. Like, why did it take that long to put him in? The theory going into why Hudson Card was starting was he makes better decisions and he sits back and allows the offense to develop in front of him. The problem is we're not Alabama. We don't have Alabama's offensive line. We cannot do that with that offensive line we have. If this is Alabama's offensive line, not even Alabama's, if this is an average offensive line, he could do what he's supposed to do, which is sit back, read the defense, and get the ball out of his hands down the field to medium routes down the field, not all the way down the field. And he just doesn't have time to do that. He doesn't have time to go through his progressions. So Casey Thompson, I think, has to be the starter from here on out. And the simple fact is, that might not be your style of quarterback. But guess what? At this point, I really don't care if that's not your style of quarterback. You're supposed to adjust with the players you have as a head coach. This is the hand you were dealt. You accepted this job. You're getting paid a lot of money to do this. So take what you have and adjust. That's what you're supposed to do. Like I said, you get one of these a year. And also, I'm not going to judge someone based off of one bad game. I'm just not. That'd be idiotic of me to do that. Especially someone like Steve Sarkisian, who is a great offensive play caller. We all know that. He's one of the 10 best in college football, probably one of the just 20 best in the country from the high school to the pro level. But you have to adjust, and he wasn't quick enough to put Case in my opinion. I think what he put him in when we were down by 20 plus. I don't even remember. This game, I kind of checked out, man. Like, it was just so frustrating. So frustrating. I haven't been this frustrated again. Tom Herman frustrated me in different ways. I should say that. He frustrated me. It was just different ways. It was the lack of, I guess, not preparedness, but emotion that the guys played with under Herman. And I will say Texas came out. You could tell they wanted to play in this game, no doubt, the first half. But I don't know if anyone else noticed as the game went on, especially the defensive backs didn't want to tackle. When the running backs got to the second level, they refused to tackle. They said, "Nah, we're down by 20 plus. I'm checking out on the next week." That frustrated the hell out of me. I mean, Arkansas rushed for over 300 yards. 300 yards. This isn't a fantastic team on the offensive line either. They're a good offensive line, and I think they'll end up winning. But like I said in last week's video, I thought Arkansas would win this game, but I thought it'd be 27-23 was my prediction, not freaking 40-21. And if they wanted to, okay, let's say the football field was 100 miles long, and you gave them 4 downs for every 10 yards. They could have run the ball every down and gotten those 100 miles. It was pathetic. We could not tackle. We could not stop. And the strength is supposed to be the defensive line. The defensive line was only a strength coming out of practice because our offensive line is terrible. So when you have a average defensive line going against a terrible offensive line, guess what you get? You get a really good-looking defensive line. It's as simple as that. We're average on the defensive side of the ball on the front. I like our linebackers, and actually I think our secondary, other than one play and tackling running backs when the game was basically over, did pretty well. The front four was terrible in the run game. The linebackers did a little bit. They cleaned up some of the messes, but it was just bad. I mean, this is the most rushing yards allowed since my guess, I did a little bit of research before coming in this chat, was we gave up 200 yards plus to TCU back in 2015. The problem with that is TCU was a top 3 team that year. I would argue top 2. I think they're probably better than Oregon. They probably should have been in the college football playoff instead of Ohio State. Ohio State got in it, obviously won it, but I think TCU was probably the second best team that year, even though they didn't get in. And we got killed by them. They rushed for 200 yards. Arkansas is not that. Arkansas is a 7-5, 6-6, 8-4 team is probably their high mark. They're a good team, and they're improving mightily. And hopefully, Kyle Flood can have the same kind of impact Sam Pittman did on our offensive line as Sam Pittman did theirs, because their offensive line is greatly improved. Like they were talking about, a lot of these guys have put on a lot of weight. So I'm hoping that can happen from year 1 to year 2. And I didn't expect the offensive line to be great. The issue isn't it being great. It's bad. It's just as bad as last year. And if you're a good offensive line coach, I expect you to tweak some things to at least improve a little bit. And if not that, then play the right guys. We're not even playing the right guys. Denzel Okafor is not the right guy. Denzel Okafor is in his 6th year and can't block anyone. He couldn't block a geriatric grandpa tonight. I could have put a guy out there in a wheelchair to go on against him, and he would have beat him. He would have rolled right past him. He's terrible. There are just some things I don't understand. If all of us fans can see it, why can't the coaches see it? For some reason, coaches get caught up in measurables, and they look at someone and say, man, this guy's 6'4", he's 300 plus pounds. This guy should be a great guard, great tackle, whatever it is. And they're just not. They just don't have the it factor. And that's the issue. And another thing, stop trusting what you see in practice. Practice does matter, don't get me wrong, but I'd rather you rely on the game tape that they put out than the practice. And we just need to either start trusting our eyes because we're not trusting them with our player development, or get someone else that is going against you and has been right up to this point about Denzel Okafor and some of the other players, and be like, okay, what do you see and why should this guy start? Andre Carrot should start over Denzel Okafor. He was much better last year when our offensive line took off when him and Majors came in, and then he doesn't even play this year, so it doesn't make any sense. Coaches come to Texas and immediately lose half their IQ points. Yeah, or we're just hiring the wrong guys. And I'm not saying that about Sarko. It's the second game. That'd be idiotic for me to say. But just certain issues. It's been different issues with each one of them. Charlie Strong, very nice human being. Average recruit, he wasn't great. And I think he's a good defensive coordinator. But the problem is when he came here, guess what? He gave up the defensive coordinator position, didn't call plays anymore. And then by the time he did, it was too late. His a foot and a half was out the door. He's already basically pushed out by the time he took over the defensive coordinator job over Vance Bedford. Tom Herman comes in, great recruiter, can't develop anyone, and he doesn't call his plays, which got him hired. Makes no sense. Steve Sarkisian comes in, seems to be a pretty good recruiter, very likable. Obviously, really good coordinator, got him hired because of that, and he's being the offensive coordinator now, so that's good. The problem I saw in this game, and it scares the hell out of me, he kept banging his head against the wall, and I'm praying it's just this game. I'm praying he sees some of the things we can and can't do and adjust to that. This team needs to stop running between the guard and the center or off the guards. They can't do that. They can't run up the middle. That's our weakness. Go outside zone if you're going to run. Get more pre-snap motion like he did at Alabama. I don't know why that's kind of gone away. And then screens. He actually did that with Casey Thompson. When Casey Thompson, we ran some screens, and I like that. I don't know why. That should have been what we did coming out. Hudson Card should have been easy, quick throws, and then hand off to Bijan. Instead, we just handed off to Bijan up the gut and said, here, take this. You're so amazing. We'll see what happens. And they killed us. They killed us at the line of scrimmage. They would rush 3 guys and get pressure. They would rush 3 guys and stop the run. On the offensive side of the ball, they had 300 yards rushing with no guy over 100 yards rushing individually. No guy over 100 yards rushing individually. That means everybody ate. Everybody ate tonight. KJ Jefferson ate. Traylon Smith ate. The freaking backup quarterback, Malik Hornsby, came in. I believe he was recruited by Texas at one point. I could be wrong on that. Came in, rushed for 30 yards down the sideline. And the only guy that stood out, 2 guys actually on defense stood out to me. B.J. Foster, fantastic game. Broke up a touchdown in the end zone. Had a great tackle on a tight end in the open field. Freaking fantastic interception. And Anthony Cook played fantastic as well. Everyone else, what in the hell were you doing? The defensive line, I bet if you put up the star ranking of our defensive line versus their offensive line, I bet our star ranking is 4.5, somewhere between there. Theirs is 3.5. And I bet if you put up the weights, we're bigger than them, and they destroyed us. Their mentality, this has always been, I don't know if you guys watched the documentary about the 05 team. I did. It was very good. And there's this country club. Everyone called Texas the country club attitude. That's what happened tonight. Like, they shoved it down our throats, man. Another example of this is there were multiple cheap shots on our quarterbacks. Multiple. And our offensive lineman just stood there and allowed them. Yeah, it's fine. It reminded me, I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I remember Andy Dalton got obliterated last year. And they just stood around. It's fine. The guy got stretched off or carted off. I mean, there were multiple cheap shots, and our offensive lineman did nothing. Nothing. They're soft. Those guys should have been on the ground. I don't care if it's a penalty, shove them to the ground. You can't allow that. It's just this soft mentality. I thought with these guys come from Alabama, they could put that in them. And again, they could over time. I don't know if that's something that's a process that takes longer than I think it does. I feel like you can get that in offseason, though, that nastiness. Maybe I'm just wrong. But overall, just bad. Just bad. Tonight, yeah, I agree with you, DMS 1983. I 100% agree with you. We got hit in the mouth, and we did not punch back. We did not punch back. We had a game plan coming in, and like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a game plan till you get hit in the mouth. And we got hit in the mouth and never really found our footing. And the thing is, that first half, I was actually pretty happy with the score going into the second half because we were only down 16-0. Like, we played F. Well, that was an F in the first half. And we somehow played an F in the second half, minus like half the fourth quarter when Casey came in and played pretty well for two or three drives. But it was just bad. There's very little bright spots in this game. Very little. I mean, special teams wasn't even good. We dropped a punt, got blocked. Dicker, by the way, most overrated field goal kicker in college football. I mean, he's so inconsistent. He'll make like the 52-yarder. The funny thing is, if he would have had 2 tonight, let's say he had a 38 and a 52, I would have put my money and made the 52 and missed the 38. He always does. He always misses the easier kick and makes the harder one. But I mean, the punt, you dropped it. It's right in your chest. You got to be able to catch that and punt. And maybe he's being spread too thin, and he shouldn't be. Maybe someone else should punt, and we'll take a hit on that. But I'd be fine with that if there's a little bit of hit on punting, but the kicking goes a little bit better because his mind's not in both places. Maybe that's the issue. I don't know, but And there are a couple big plays in this game where momentum wanted to switch, and we just couldn't take advantage of it. There were three, actually, in my opinion. The first one was right off the bat. When they muffed that punt, if we would have got that and scored there, I think a little, because I watched a lot of Arkansas preview this week. They said their special teams was an issue. And if that's true, then you kind of get a little bit of a doubt creeping in their minds at that point, especially if we score a touchdown. Like, man, is this going to happen? Are we going to shoot ourselves in the foot again? That didn't happen. We happened to step out of bounds when Keaton Crawford got it back and kind of screwed us. Well, I mean, didn't screw us. It was the right call, but that hurt. Second one was we're down 3-0, have a little bit of a drive, throw to Jordan Whittington. Wasn't a great throw. Could have been caught. Probably. Should have been caught. Probably not. And that was big. We would have been up 7-3 at that point. And then the third one was my memory actually escapes me on the third one, but those were the two right away that were big momentum shoots. Oh, the third one was B.J. Foster interception. We go down and score right there at 16-7. If we stop them, get a punt, and then come down, even if we score a field goal, 16-10, it's a one-score game. Those are the three chances. Other than that, we didn't really have any. We had three, and we just weren't able to capitalize on those three. We weren't able to capitalize on one of them. So it doesn't really matter. Sark had 5 first-round draft picks to work with last year. He has to realize that's not going to be the case here. 100%. Mac Jones. I think our quarterbacks are actually equal or better to Mac Jones. The difference is what makes Alabama. Everyone points to Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Najee Harris, all those guys. No one points to Evan Neal, Jonah Williams, all those guys across the offensive line they produce. That's what makes them them. Because these guys you have all this motion beforehand. Then you have these absolute studs on the outside with a guy who's a stud in the backfield, and you get all day to throw. If you have all day to throw, I don't know if anyone watched the Miami versus Alabama game. Bryce Young could have built a house back there and slept. Like, if you have that time with those athletes, it's unfair. And again, Alabama's going to win the national championship again. They're going to get there at least. I expect them to win it, especially with Ohio. I mean, I don't see even a clear number 2 at this point. It's only the second week, though. And he doesn't have that here. He doesn't. And let's get to the main point of just this whole thing in general. Hudson Card versus Casey Thompson. Hudson Card was chosen because, like I said, he goes through his progressions like a typical quarterback and then makes a decision. Casey Thompson is 1-2 run. 1-2 run. With this offensive line, you need to do the 1-2 run because this offensive line cannot keep up. This offensive line is terrible. So I would go with Casey Thompson from here on. Hudson Card is not a bad quarterback. I actually think there's a very bright future for him. The problem is the offensive line. Unless you get the offensive line shored up or you allow Hudson Card to run, because I think there's either he's been told not to run or he's not sure of himself. And it may just he's not sure of himself because there are a couple plays in this game where it looks like I want to run, and then he doesn't, and then he finally does, but he only gets, instead of like the 10 yards he could have gotten, he gets like 3 or 4. And that's an issue. If you're telling a guy he can't run just because you don't like a running quarterback and you want him to stay in the pocket as long as possible and then find someone to throw to, no, that doesn't work with this offensive line. He needs to come in this week and say, listen, 2 reads, run. 2 reads, run. That's what we got. And the funny thing is we play in the Big 12, so there's not many teams that are going to be able to dominate us on the front like that. Oklahoma probably would be able to. Hopefully we get better by then. I hope. I don't want to get blown out by them. Iowa State, but they didn't look that good today. Those are probably the only 2. No other team I don't think can dominate us up front like that. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm not. But, I mean, this team is basically what I thought from the beginning. Max 10-2, and that was going to be if we win this game, which we clearly didn't. Bottom 8-4, so probably gonna be the bottom. Probably gonna be 8-4. I'm fine with that. I mean, this isn't a national championship team. This was a national championship expectations, and if you had that, probably want to go get your head checked. And just about there was multiple things. Another thing was the 4th down call. No issue with going for it there. None going for it. But you get in a single setback formation and run up the middle when all night you couldn't run up the middle. Why? You have an athletic quarterback. Why not run a play action bootleg and either, if it's there, create an easy pitch and catch with the tight end slipping out of the backfield, or just run the ball. Just have your quarterback who either one, both mobile. If that read's not there, just take off and run and get 2 yards. I bet that works. Kendall Briles called a fantastic game. Fantastic game. He was fantastic the whole night. Fourth down calls, especially, a lot of motion, a lot of just play action off of it. He knew exactly what his strengths and weaknesses of his team were and went to his strengths and went away from his weaknesses. And that's the biggest issue. And I'm fine with if in practice the strengths are one thing and they're showing you one thing about their strengths, and then in the game they're not, that's on the players. But if you're just misevaluating them and trying to fit that a square peg into a round hole, that's on you as a head coach. And what will tell me, obviously we won't find out next week. We play a food next week. We play rice. So you're not going to learn anything from that game. I believe we play Texas Tech the week after it. That game will probably tell us a little. But I'm not sure, maybe TCU. That game will tell us everything. That will tell me if Sark is going to continue to bang his head against the wall and we're going to have issues like this the whole year, or he's willing to adjust. I'm praying he's willing to adjust. I'm praying. Like I said, if this is Alabama and you just get whoever you want and pick the guy off the roster who fits your needs and is a 5-star, go ahead. But if you pick the guy that fits your needs, they may not exist on this roster, or they may not be good. Maybe that's the case with Denzel Okafor. And I just don't understand it. Doesn't make any sense. It's just frustrating. Like I said, I predicted them to lose this game, but 40-21 with 300 yards rushing, the most yards rushing I believe we've given up since 2012 against BYU, which was a record. And Taysom Hill basically went berserk in that game. I think he rushed for 300 yards himself. So this was just embarrassing. There are some games that are embarrassing, and it's when you get beat up front. And this was embarrassing. We got manhandled, mauled. If that game could have lasted the next year and we wouldn't stop the run. They just would have run down our throats. They would have killed our defense, literally killed them. The guys would have been laying there dead. It was pathetic. It was beyond pathetic. And I'm probably harping on the defense a little bit too much because at least they showed a little bit of promise in the first half. The offense was terrible the whole game. Terrible the whole game. I mean, we only scored at the end because Case came in, gave us a little bit of spark, and they were basically done. They didn't really care. They knew the game was over. So just frustrating, absolutely frustrating. And I'm hoping from here on out it's Casey. If it's not, then they need to unleash Card and tell him you can run if you absolutely have to, or you can run when it breaks down instead of going through progressions and then running when there were multiple opportunities, like I said, where you saw him drop back to pass, look. Okay, I'm going to run, and then deciding to run. And instead of 10 yards, he got 3. So it makes no sense. Yes, Tom Herman, start Casey. Don't do what Tom did until he started Ellinger. See, the issue with that, Frank, it's pretty much the same situation. Shane was a much better passer than Sam. Problem is our offensive line was terrible, so you had to go with Sam. The issue is similar here, except the difference between Casey and Hudson throwing is minute. It's very small. If Hudson has an A arm, I think Casey has a B arm. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But whereas I think Shane had a B plus arm, I think Sam had a C minus arm, maybe even a D. It's the same issue. And people don't realize Texas has had 2 offensive linemen drafted in 10 years. 2. And guess what? They're both 3-star recruits, Samuel Cosme and Connor Williams. So I guess we developed those 2 guys. That's the only 2 guys we did develop. But that's the issue. Until we get this offensive line figured out and the defensive lines win football games. They always will. People always point to the flashy stuff, the wide receivers, the running backs, the play calling. If you don't have the offensive line to protect your quarterback, the offensive line to allow plays to develop, the offensive line to give the quarterback time to read his progressions and scan the field, it does not matter. It does not matter. It does not matter. Name me a Super Bowl team or a national championship winning team that had a worse than average offensive line. Seriously, name me one. I don't think there is one that I can think of. The worst one in my lifetime that I can think of, I'm a Broncos fan, was probably the 2015 Broncos. Their offensive line was average, but it was average. It wasn't bad. Like, you could get a little bit of time and do what you needed to do. This offensive line is terrible. Terrible as constructed. So they need to deconstruct and see what they got. Play the young guys. If it's this bad with the old guys, play the young guys, see what they have. At least you'll know what they have, and you can go out and recruit harder on the spots you're missing. Seriously, just jump on our yeah, no. If you don't think Casey is better than Card at this point, you are delusional. I think he's better for this team. I don't think he's the better. Are you talking about pro prospect? Because pro prospect, definitely not. Hudson's better pro prospect. And Hudson, again, I think will end up being the better overall quarterback, college quarterback, eventually down the line. But for this team, Casey is definitely the better quarterback going forward because the offensive line's bad, and Casey is more decisive with his decisions throwing, and he's more decisive with his legs running. And like I said, I think Hudson got the job for being the opposite of that, where he would sit in the pocket long, hold it, and then when it's not there, instead of running, just throw it away. For some reason, Sark wants that guy. I understand because he's more of a pro type guy, but these are the cards you're dealt with. Play Casey. But Allen didn't necessarily trust offensive. Yeah, no, neither does Card. I don't think. I mean, if you saw later in the game, every time we had any type of success, he would roll out to the right from the weak side of the offensive line, which is the left side. By the way, it doesn't make any sense to me why you want that to be the weak side. I'd put my best players on the left side, especially with the right-handed quarterback, but whatever. But anytime he had any success, it was rolling out to the right and throwing, or rolling out to the right running. So obviously right-handed quarterback, that's going to be the case most of the times, but it's just that's the only time he really had success. And he doesn't trust him either, and he shouldn't trust him. They're not good at this point. This is Casey's team. Casey had the same pocket. Card had all this game. Casey didn't have the same pocket, though, because the runs were – Arkansas – the intensity was over at that point. The game was over. That's my only issue. But I 100% agree Casey should start. I'm not disagreeing with you. Casey should 100% start, but it's not the same situation. And 100% agree that Casey, like I said, he's just a better fit. I don't know what else to say. That's all it is. I'm not saying Hudson's a bad player. He's not. He's not a bad player. He's good. The only issue I had with this game was the indecision on everything. You could tell he was second-guessing himself. And guess what? He's a young player. I'm not surprised by that. But thing is, what the luxury of most great teams have when their young quarterback is indecisive, guess what they have? A great offensive line. They can just hand the ball off to the running back the first quarter like we tried to do. And that's what Sark tried to do. He's trying to, get him in the game slowly. But I would have rather had him doing it off of screens and play actions and little dump-off passes than just handing it off to Bijan up the middle and us getting no yards basically the whole time. Casey's the guy right now. Actually, do you think we could have saved this game straight after halftime? Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it was just the real question is, would Casey have been able to score 30 points and a half? Do you think that? That's the question because we weren't going to stop them running the ball. And I agree. I think we would have put up a little more resistance if the game got closer, but we were going to have to score 30 points. So if you think we were going to score 30 points and a half with Casey, I don't know if we were going to be able to do that personally. But who knows? Again, we play Rice next week, so, I mean, we're going to win that game. I don't think it'll be close either. Actually, I think if the spread is anything less than 35, I would probably take Texas for the simple fact I think they're going to be pretty pissed off. Like I said, I think the next real test is going to be TCU. I'm going to play them at TCU. That should be interesting. And I think they're pretty good. I don't think they're great, but Gary Patterson obviously always comes at us, always plays well, schemes well versus us. So that should be a very interesting game. And again, running quarterback. We had issues with KJ Jefferson. Max Dugan's going to be able to run the ball versus us. And Zach Evans is a better running back than any of them they have. Now he's not as fast as probably Traylon Smith, but he's probably a better overall running back. Why did Sark run it 3 times in a row he ran it 4 times because even the 4th time, I think you're talking about the fourth down. We basically ran it 4 times. It was Casey. Yeah, I don't understand that either. Why did we run it 5 out of the first 6 plays? Basically 4 out of the 6 because 2 of them were scrambles. But I don't know. There was just, and it's not even about the fact that you're running it. We ran it up the middle. Guys, it didn't work versus Louisiana. It wasn't working versus Arkansas. You got to abandon it. That's one thing. An example of that, the Cowboys, they realized, guess what? The Bucs probably have the best front seven in football. Now, I'm not saying Arkansas has that, but they have a good front seven and a very good defense coordinator. Probably it's him and Brent Venables and then everyone else, in my opinion, defensive coordinator-wise. But they said, guess what? To win this game, we're going to have to throw it 50-plus times. And they probably should have won. If their kicker wasn't garbage, they would have won the game. So do what works. It may not work the whole season, but that's the thing. The best coach of all time in football is Bill Belichick. He doesn't build a game plan for a whole season and stick to that. He builds a game plan based on his strengths versus that team's weaknesses and exploits it play after play, down after down. That's what a good coach is supposed to do, exploit the mismatches in every single game. Some teams have different strengths in different aspects, and some teams have different weaknesses in different aspects. So you don't build a game plan for a whole year. You build it on a game-to-game aspect. That's what great coaches do, and then they adjust on the fly if those things don't work for whatever reason. I think people just make football more difficult than it needs to be sometimes. Casey had more poison, a little more creativity coming out of the circle with the playbook, and he was hitting targets more than Card for more than 5 yards. Not true. And now I would like to watch the all 22 tape on this because I don't know if guys weren't getting open or Card wasn't willing to pull the trigger on some tight throws. And in football in general, especially at every level you get up higher, the windows get tighter. And I don't know, again, because he's young. He has the arm talent, so I don't know why he wouldn't. He did versus Louisiana. He threw that in between two guys. Why he wouldn't let it rip in this game. Obviously, he let a couple rip deep, but they were bad overthrows. But there were no tight window throws that I can think of tonight where he just said, I'm letting it rip. If it's a pick, it's a pick. And I think tonight was kind of the night he kind of had to do that, to be honest with you, because we couldn't stop him on the ground. And yeah, Casey, again, just more decisive. He, like I said, when he made his mind up, he did. Hudson didn't do that. Hudson was very indecisive. Again, young quarterback. That's why I thought we'd lose the game. I did not think this. I didn't think we'd get destroyed on the line. That's just bad. You should have done a counter with Casey. Yeah, I mean, I think the read option with whoever the quarterback is going forward needs to be a bigger part of the offense for the simple fact both of these guys are good athletes. Again, Hudson Card was a 1,000-yard wide receiver at Lake Travis. He's a hell of an athlete. But Casey's, again, I think it's more of the experience aspect of where Casey's more decisive. And being more decisive, let's say, can turn a 7-yard or a 3-yard run can be a 7-yard run with Casey because he was more decisive and decided earlier that he was going to run the football or throw the football. So that's what I think needs to happen from here on out. You go with the more decisive and more mobile guy who's willing to do what it takes. And like I said, I loved him at the end of the game lowering his shoulder and going for that touchdown. It tells me he's engaged and he gives a crap. He could easily be, I'm not even the starter. Why should I do anything for this team? I'll just run out of bounds here or just give a half-ass dive in the end zone. He lowered his shoulder and said, I'm going to score here. So that tells me he's fully engaged. And, yeah, he should be the starter from here on out. No ifs, ands, or buts. When do you think we'll see the creative play calling will start? Because based on these games, I know it's early, but I 100% agree with you. And I don't know if he can't show all the creativity that showed at Alabama. First off, he doesn't have the playmakers. Our playmakers are C+. Alabama has A playmakers. So they're at least somewhat close. But our offensive line's a D, and Alabama's offensive line's A+. So he may not have the time to take the routes and concepts that he wants, creativity-wise, the deep routes and stuff like that. But I think he can still do some of the motion stuff. And I think he can design his plays better. And there was a counter, I believe, with Bijan early in the second quarter that I really liked that we didn't run again. I don't know why. I think it was a counter. And I think it was either in the second quarter or first quarter. And there are just run plays like that. We have to be more creative. We just the fourth down call. You can't just say, here, Bijan, go get 2 yards for us when we haven't been able to do that all night. There was no creativity there. Even a little, and I think we get the first down there. Just none. Kendall Briles out-coached him on the offensive side of the football. A lot more creativity, and he stuck to what worked. And that's the biggest thing is just sticking to what works. And hopefully, we don't have to show it versus Rice because they're not good. But Tech will probably have to show a little bit. I at least want to see it. I like to see more pre-snap motion. And this just came in my head. Keelan Robinson. Why in the hell did we not see him more? That guy's explosive, man. Like, put him out there in the slot or put him in the backfield with – I love when we run the 2 running back sets with both guys lined up or one out wide and one in the backfield. I feel like he should have been involved more. Another guy, Juan Davis, dude gets – when we do scroll a three, we scroll it to Juan Davis for his first – like, I think that's his first catch. And we throw it to him. No, that's just made no sense. And it's funny. When we started moving the ball with Casey, it was, like I said, I think I said this earlier in the video, it was screens out to the wide receivers. Jordan Whittington caught one. I think Joshua Moore had one. Maybe it was Xavier Worthy. But there was a couple screens in there, and those work. And those should have been, again, the first drive in my mind should have been play action, take a shot, and if it's not there, then a run by a quarterback. Then second down, I probably would have run like a screen. Third down, if it's short, hand it off to Bijan. It's in some outside zone run concept with like a wide receiver coming in motion beforehand. And then see like those type of play calls. And we just didn't see him, and it's just frustrating. And then again, when we did see him, it was too late. So who knows? I'm interested to hear what he says. I know he's talking now, and I'm on with you guys, but I'm interested to see when I get off here what he says and what his explanations are. Again, I'm judging him based on what I saw. I want to hear his thought process because he's better. He's 10 times smarter, 100 times smarter than me. He knows way more football than I'll ever know. So I'm not going to judge him. Again, one off this game too hard. I'm going to judge him off his past, and they showed it in his last. I think 42 starts as an offensive play caller or coach. The guy has averaged like 30.1 points per game, so that's pretty good. And he was just had an off night. And Barry Odom, that's why we went after Barry Odom. The guy's either the best or second best defensive coordinator in college football. I know we don't have the same sort of players at Bama, and I can admit that, but why are we not involving Dixon, Keelan Asad, or something gadgetly? I don't know. If I had the main guys I'd always use would be tight end. If we're talking about it, you want big explosive type plays, there's obviously room for possession guys. There's always room for those third down guys to come in here, get short yardage stuff. But I want Keelan, I want Bijan, I want Jared Wiley at tight end, I want Joshua Moore, I want Jordan Whittington, and I want Kevontae Dixon. Those are the guys I want out there when you need a big play or you need some type of creative play. Everyone else is kind of just Like third down, I wouldn't care if you want Marcus Washington in there. He's a pretty good route runner, has pretty good hands. And then same with K. Brewer, good blocker, decent hand. He dropped the one tonight, but decent hands most of the time. But really, no one else. We just don't – that's what we need. Like, if we're talking for recruiting, there's like 3 guys that we really, really, in my opinion, cannot miss on. Evan Stewart. If you haven't seen him, go watch him. Freaking phenomenal. He's what Bama has had forever, basically. Devin Campbell, guard. Really need him. And then someone like Harold Perkins. When's the last time we had just a absolute freak pass rusher? Obviously Joseph was high, but I'm talking about like from the word go, and I'm talking first round draft pick. Was it Sergio? I think Sergio Kindle was a first round draft pick, but that's the last guy in my memory that just like you could count on that guy. Like he was there. He would, and that guy would have succeeded in the NFL if not for a freak motorcycle accident where he cracks his skull. Like the guy was a freak, so good, and we just don't have that. And people want to talk about everything else. Again, we have pretty good wide receivers. We just don't have the lines down yet. And defensive line, there's really no excuse. We've recruited pretty well there, and the guys are big and strong. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So just dumb. Just overall dumb. Who would you start next week? Oh, thank you for the super chat, by the way. Texas 2005. Who would you start at QB next week, and what adjustments would you make on the O-line? Okay, good question. I'm starting Casey. Well, next week is Rice, guys. So I would experiment a lot. I would do different things and keep it pretty vanilla. But I would probably just alternate every other drive between the quarterbacks versus Rice, and then make my decision based off that game, but based off how they I'd put them in the same situations, play calling wise, and see who reacts better. And that's what, because it's game time. That's basically you running a practice in game time, and that's what I would do. Based off tonight, if we were playing like let's say we had to play Oklahoma or Arkansas again next week, I'd play Casey. Like, he'd be the starter. And then offensive line, I mean, Kirksetter can pretty much play anywhere. So I'm thinking if you kicked him down to center, you keep Angela at right guard, you put Majors at left guard, Christian Jones can stay at left tackle, and then you play – so it'd be Jones at left tackle, Majors at left guard, center would be Kirksetter. Right guard, I'd go – see, that's a problem. I don't know. I would have to think about that more, but I would definitely take Denzel Okafor out. Denzel Okafor's got to go. Got to go. I would put Karich or Hayden Connor in. I mean, Hayden Connor played pretty good versus Louisiana when Junior Angelo went out. So, I mean, that's the issue. Our guards are just really bad. And if you want to be the type – thank God Tom Herman's not the coach. Remember, he wants to run power formation type football right up your face. Yeah, he would have had no chance with this offensive line. I think at least Sarkisian will realize we can't really run up the middle anymore. We kind of have to run zone, or why not run an end run? That's another thing they could do, but they didn't do that at all. Thank you again for the super chat, Texas 2005. Where's Bichon's mindset after getting legitimately stopped? Not his fault, of course, but he couldn't get in a groove, and everyone could tell. No Roschon. Yeah, Roschon. They didn't use any really of the running backs other than Bijan. And again, if you're going to waste, like, running backs have so many carries on them just in general, and you're going to waste some of these carries just running them basically in a brick wall after brick wall straight up the middle. Again, there was no creativity in his runs, and the ones that worked were to the outside. Everything's got to be on the outside. We realized this last year too. A lot of people pointed out, and I pointed out, like, you got to run these guys to the outside. First off, because they're really athletic. Second off, our offensive line is not good, and it hasn't been in a long time. And until it gets better, that's going to be the biggest issue. Luckily, again, we play in a conference that doesn't have great defensive line play. There's better this year than there has been in years past. But again, other than Iowa State and Oklahoma, and I'd have to watch more TCU tape and more game. I haven't watched them at all. I was busy watching the A&M and Colorado game and Ohio State Oregon game. A little bit of the Iowa State-Iowa game, but I don't know if they can exploit that. But overall, just super disappointing. Like I said, these roller coasters we go on, man. I mean, after last week, I was feeling pretty good. There was probably more motion. I would love – if I watched some tape, I bet there was more motion versus Louisiana than versus Arkansas, which makes no sense. But it just felt like that to me, at least. And again, I expect them to beat Rice. It would have been nice to go 3-0. It would have been the first time to go 3-0 since 2012, so almost a decade since you started 3-0, which this should have happened multiple times under Tom Herman, if not for the Maryland loss. And the 1 year where we lost to USC. But just disappointing. There's really nothing else I can say. I mean, I'm just hoping we can get it together, adjust, and not lose. The second most important thing from this is don't lose recruits, especially on the offensive defensive line. Like, defensive line is the recruiting class is insane for next year with the Justice Finkley commit. We can't lose guys like that. Yeah, that's not good. Zach Evans had almost 200 yards rushing for TCU, and that's Cal is a good defensive team. Justin Wilcox is a good defensive coach, so that's not good. It'll be interesting to see how he does versus us. And also, it's one of those things, he probably runs with this sort of anger versus us and other big teams because, you know, he had all those recruiting issues and all those people pulled offers from him or didn't offer him at all because of the issues. And he'll probably have – I'm probably have a great game versus us. I hopefully not too good of a game. Like, if you rush for 200, we're going to lose TC if you rush for 200 yards. But he shouldn't rush versus that many yards versus us. Like, if I had to put a prediction on it, say 100 to 120. You know how many carries he had in that game, by the way, Texas 2005? What is the track? The program. After getting brass marks, the team looked deflated early and had this team either 5-1 or 4-0. Realistically. Okay, before the season, I thought we were going to be 8-4 to 9-3. I still think we can go 8-4 to 9-3. Like I said, we'll beat Rice, so we're going to be 2-1. And then Tech, we should beat. Again, other than like teams like Rice, I'm not gonna in Kansas, you can chalk those. So that's an automatic 2 wins right there. So we'll have 3 for sure. And then you got to look down the schedule. Oklahoma, we're probably not beating. Again, that you kind of throw it out in a neutral rivalry game like that. So, and it's a month away. So we have plenty of time to prepare. But obviously that looks like a loss right now. Like if I had to project, I'd say 8-4. So, which I'm fine with. Like that's fine in your first year. And I just want you to take steps from there. That's what Tom Herman's issue was. He never took the steps. He always there was here. It was just like this. No consistency. If you go from here, that's fine. You got to build. And I don't expect the guy to come in here. I didn't expect like some people were projecting like second place, 11-1 type stuff. That's just wasn't realistic. Wow, 200 yards on 8. Okay, yeah, that's not good. I mean, he has the talent. I'm not surprised by that. His issue was off the field stuff, and I guess some on the field. I guess it carried out over to the field, but he's a really good player. That's why he was going to go to Georgia, and then surprisingly, they didn't want him. They'll take anybody, it seems like. So, yeah, that's kind of scary. Like I said, I think we play them after the Tech game, so we got 3 weeks. So we'll know. I know we won't. We probably won't know until the TCU game if this defensive line is going to be like this for the rest of the season, because I don't think Tech will be able to run like that. I don't think they'll stick to the run, even if they were. And Rice isn't going to be able to do that. They just don't have the guys up front. But TCU will let us know. I think the TCU game will tell us everything we need to know about the coaching staff. It'll tell us everything about the players on the roster. Because if we don't adjust from this type of game, we just keep this type of game plan versus TCU, they will beat us. They won't beat us as bad because they don't have a stable of backs like that. Also, I think KJ Jefferson's probably a little bit better of a quarterback than Max Duggan. And I doubt their defense might be as talented, but I know Gary Patterson's a good coach, but Barry Odom, in my opinion, is on a whole nother level. That guy is phenomenal. That's why I was praying we could take him from Arkansas. I wanted him. He was my first choice. And Pete K did not have a good game tonight. Most of that was on the defensive line, but also the play calling was just like, you blitz, buddy, but you blitzed too late, man. You should have come out early on and tried to punch them in the mouth before they punched you, and they punched us in the mouth way earlier than we did, if we ever did. And they did not let up, clearly. 47 carries, 333 yards, 7.1 yards per attempt. That's pretty pathetic. And we averaged 3.3 yards per attempt, or 3.0 yards per attempt, so that was pretty bad. There's really nothing else I can say, guys. Unless you have any other questions, I'm probably going to jump off here. Just remember to like the video, comment down below if you have any other questions, and subscribe to the channel. And go over to MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, and subscribe to his channel. And then, what do you think about Schooler? He missed a few crucial plays. Why isn't Adam Warp? I don't know. I think Schooler's a good player. I don't think he should be starting. There's some things like, it's funny how different coaching staffs see different things. Like under Tom Herman, I don't know if Chris Adamora like kissed ass with that staff, but they love that dude. They loved him. And this staff does not, apparently. I mean, they don't hate him, but they don't obviously don't like his play because he doesn't play that much. It's kind of the opposite with Anthony Cook. Like Anthony Cook was benched under Herman, and he's playing, and in my opinion, was the second best player on the defense tonight. So obviously everyone likes B.J. Foster because the guy almost quit and Tom Herman begged him to stay, and you see why he's very good. Other than DeMarvion Overshown, to me, who is always consistent since last year, there's no one consistent on this defense, and everything should be evaluated week to week. But I don't know if they're going to do that. And the defensive line, like literally no one stands out on the defensive line. Not even Coburn. Like he had a really good first series. But after that, it's like, where are you, man? You're supposed to be like, everyone keeps talking him up. He's a good player, but he's not who everyone thought he was going to be. He's just not. Arkansas will play very physical against UB in the next physical. Yep. Play them in OU and Iowa State. With Herman, we were very physical, toe-to-toe type team. Yeah, that's the thing. That's why we never got beat. Herman had 2 issues with him, his whole thing, and it sunk the ship. Like, he didn't build relationships, which Sark is definitely doing a lot better of a job. And he didn't keep his foot on the gas when he had a team down. Like that Louisiana game last week, Louisiana versus Tom Herman team, a Tom Herman-led team, would have come back and made that a 10-point game. Like That's just the type of guy Tom Herman was. He's always going to let you back into the game. But he was never going to get blown out because the thing is that you're right. They're physical. They just beat the shit out of you on the offensive and defensive lines. And they did a fantastic job of that. That's why they, like I said, never got blown out. I don't even know. I'd be interested to look up. I'm going to actually look this up afterwards, what Tom Herman's biggest loss was. My guess, I think it's probably 2 touchdowns. I don't think I'd ever beat by more than 2 touchdowns. And that's what kind of scared – like, there wasn't like the only boneheaded play that reminded me of the Charlie Strong era was the special teams play, and that was more of no one missed an assignment, he just dropped the ball, where there was like boneheaded plays under Charlie Strong. I was like, what are you even doing? What are you thinking? We never had those under Tom Herman, and we had a couple of those tonight. Again, nothing to the extent of Charlie Strong, but we still had a couple that scared me. And if we see those again, like in big games like that, like say TCU, and we see this again, I'm going to definitely have to start questioning the staff as a whole if we see it again versus TCU. I mean, it's just the case. Like I said, you get one of these a year, in my opinion, a freebie. And really, really good teams, even Alabama, you'll see them like sleepwalk their game, but they'll win it by 2 to 3 touchdowns just because of the talent. We don't have that talent. So when you sleepwalk their game like this versus a team that we have a little bit more talent than, but not as much as people think we do, and team, by the way, that's been coached up on the lines very well because Sam Pittman's a fantastic offensive line coach. That's what happens. Played last week. Yeah, we do. We've missed a couple guys like that. Banks was really bad. I mean, really bad missed Oregon. There was another offensive lineman, too, that we missed in the screening cycle that we were running. And obviously, the Brock Myers last year was pathetic. TCU, yeah, 2007, yeah, that sounds right. Like, and that's not even that bad of a game. I mean, 24-7, it's not that bad. And I think we probably lost to TCU by 17 again, I think. Or maybe that's the same game when Sam threw like 4 interceptions. But that one game wasn't good either. TCU's probably been our worst losses under Herman just in general. Just frustrating. Like I said, we'll know in 3 weeks if this is another Tom Herman situation or worse or better. Like I said, it's all about adjustments. He couldn't make the proper ones in the game tonight. Hopefully makes the proper ones on the season. And I'm very interested to, like I said, watch the Rice game to see if he decides to go in that situation where I said where you basically just have an open practice and you run the same type of plays for each guy and see who reacts better. That's what I would do. We'll see what he does, though. I'm really hoping he doesn't come out and just play Hudson Card the whole game. If he does that, we're going to be in trouble. If you guys have any more questions, drop them in the chat. If not, probably going to jump off here. But again, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. Like it as well. And go subscribe to Mark Rogers, the voice of college football, at his main channel. And support him. In the description of the video, I believe there's a Patreon link. There's merch. I know he just came out with merch, so go buy some of that. It's really nice, cool merch. And, yeah, let's put this score up here. We haven't done it all night. Depressing, but we'll throw it up there. Okay, guys. Well, I think that's going to be it for me tonight. Try to have a good rest tonight. And obviously, we play Rice next week. I'll be here after that game. Probably be a much shorter post-game show. Probably be in a much better mood. And always, guys, throw up the horns. Hook 'em.